Hello, it's Friday the 28th of February 2025 and today is the release day of the seventh book in the Bow Street Society series, and I'm here talking to the author of the book today, the lovely T.G. Campbell. Tani, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you much. How are you?
Yeah, good stuff actually, a little bit jet lagged. I'm recording this a couple of days in advance, I won't pretend I'm not. And yes, quite tired. But yeah, so book number 7.
I
Wow.
know. I can't believe it. It's already book number 7.
Yeah, because you're is it a secret to say how many at the moment you're planning or?
No, you can say yes. So at the moment it is planned to be 10 books in the series.
Excellent. So
So,
that's quite a 70% of the way there. That's quite a significant moment, isn't it?
oh yeah, yeah.
So for somebody who doesn't know, because I talk about it on my podcast quite a lot, tell me about what the Bow Street Society is.
So in a nutshell, so the British Society is a group of amateur detectives. They live and operate in Victorian London in 1896, 1897. And basically each member of society has a normal job as well as being a detective. So there's an architect, doctor, illusionist, artist, and they use their skills and knowledge from the ordinary jobs to investigate and solve the cases that are assigned to them by Scientist Clerk, Miss Rebecca Trent. So depending on what case they get commissioned to investigate, depends on who she assigns. It depends on what skills and knowledge is needed.
So it's fair to say you've basically got a bit of a rotating cast of characters, and not everybody appears in every book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So how long did it take you? Did you create all the characters first, or because I mean, there's not all the characters are in the first book, for example.
No.
So when you created the first book, did you know that characters like Lady Alston and the others are introduced in book 2? Had you already planned them, or were they created specifically for that book?
So Lady Alston and Miss Agnes Webster, her secretary, were actually created specifically for the second book, The Case of Lois Lushington, because so that focuses on Oxford Street and department stores, and she is a fashion journalist, so that's her speciality. And the same with so in book 3, The Spectral Shot, Mr. Callahan Skinner, who is the guns expert, he again was created specifically for that book, as well as Mr. Virgil Verity, who is a spiritualist and retired school teacher. So very much sort of as much as Miss Trent sort of sees who she's got in her collection, I sort of created people and assigned them in my own mind for each different case for the different characters.
That's brilliant, and that's still going on because we've got a relatively new character that started. Well, it might have been in book 5. And I'm struggling to remember the name, but the gentleman who might be working in more than one direction at the same time. Remind me of him.
So it's Dr. Neil Colbert. So he is actually the resident physician at Bethlehem Hospital. So basically the asylum, also colloquially known as Bedlam. But he also has an interest in physiognomy, which is like the truth of the face and how the face can sort of tell you something about a person's personality. So he's sort of got interest in that. But so that's the basis that he's assigned as a member to the British Society to see basically if you could tell if someone's lying just by how their face sits and that sort of thing. But I say, yeah, he very much is, playing both sides of the battlefield, shall we say. So it's known to the reader, not necessarily known to the society members, that he is also working secretly for the Metropolitan Police as like a little mole in their group.
It's very, very interesting stuff. Now, this is book 7. This one is called The Curse of the Fatal Flaw.
The case of the Fatal Flaw, yeah.
The case of the Fatal Flaw.
The curse, the curse, because it's book 7. It's like, when will it end?
So what can you tell us about the story in this particular book?
So each of the British Society books do tend to have a theme. So say like the second one had department stores, Spectral Shot had like spiritualism. This one centres very much around a theatre, so a fictional theatre in the West End in London, and sort of the microcosm of society that is found in that theatre, and somebody in that theatre company is brutally murdered, and the society have to be called in basically to investigate because somebody else with the theatre is basically blamed for that death, so they hire the society to investigate, to basically clear their names, so they can go back to work in the theatre.
Excellent stuff. And this one's been quite a while in the writing, hasn't it?
Yeah, so it's been actually about 2 years since I released The Case of Puglis Ploy, which was the boxer one, that was book 6, and this one, partly because I also was planning to book 7, 8 and 9 as well, to do the society, the series Bible, and also doing the research, a lot of research, but this is actually the longest in the series. So the actual print paperback copy is over 600 pages long. So it's quite a bit of a beast of a book. And then when I was writing it, I didn't realise it was going to be as long, but because it's not just the mystery, it's also the character subplots that are developing. It's quite a major incident and development happens to one of the key characters in this book. So all that sort of research and build up to that obviously has to take place throughout the book. So, but normally I try to release a book a year. So I normally try to release the main book in the series and also a short story collection per year. So I'm sort of moving back towards that schedule now.
Excellent. Right. Now, I was lucky enough to be one of the beta readers for this book. In fact, I think is this the third one I've done? I think it's the third one I've done for you. So, and I do mention you in my podcast quite a lot. So would you like to explain how we know each other?
Yeah, so I remember there's a place in Waterstones called Cafe W. So I started going there because there's actually a group in Milton Keynes where I live, which originally started with National Novel Writing Month, just a group of writers who would meet up just to sort of share their love of writing and to read each other's stuff, and just basically just generally socialise. And I remember sitting there, one of the other writers there, and Andrew came in. He's like, "Hello," and he's like, "I've not been here before," and got chatting, didn't we, about sort of our books. And I remember you ordered The Curious Client there and then, and also our other friend's book as well. And it just sort of went from there, really, didn't it? It was just one of those chance meetings, as they say, that I think it was fate.
And you have actually genuinely influenced my writing process. So you mentioned NaNoWriMo there. And the way they encourage you to do your writing is to do the whole first draft and then edit it. And I have to say, it nearly killed me, because whilst the first draft is a joy to write, the second draft, which is basically a massive tidy up usually, is just hell. So I'd love you to talk me through your writing process, and I've mentioned in my podcast a few times that you have influenced it, because I have changed my model of writing. So tell us about how you do your writing.
So like I say, when I first started getting into writing, I did that sort of technique of get the whole draft written and then go back, and I just found personally that it was just too much. Like I say, I'm a mountain to climb, and I couldn't hold in my head all different details, because with a mystery you very much have to. Some people don't, but I very much have to plan my plot out, plan my mystery out, get the red herrings and clues. And I just couldn't go back and sort of revise that and edit that if it was one big massive draft. So I very much, first of all, I went away from having one single file, so I have each chapter in a different file, but I very much write in order and I edit as I go along, which some people say to you, no, don't do that, you'll never get a book finished. But actually I found it a lot quicker process, because once I get to that final edit of the main draft, a lot of the problems have already been resolved. So I will write a scene and then go back and edit that scene until I'm happy with it. There are various things that I'll look at in that editing process, not just like, does it sound good? Like stuff like consistency, character motivation, character actions, anything to clues, obviously descriptions generally, like locations and research and things. And it's so much easier to have that bit of a more targeted edited approach, because you just look at that one section rather than thinking, oh, I've got like 200,000 words to hold in my head while I'm writing it, when I'm editing it, sorry. So that is very much the technique I use. And it's the common technique is to do one big draft and then go back and edit it. And people are quite surprised when I always say, when I edit as I go along, and they say, well, how many books have you written? And they think I'm going to say, oh, I'm still in the same book for like 5 years. Like, oh, no, I'm on now book 7. They're like, oh, okay. So I do that sort of, it's going against the stereotype of somebody who edits as go along. It's just a bit of a, what's the word? They take too much time. Procrastinator. It's a procrastinator, and they don't really know what they're doing, and they just that's why you shouldn't do editing as you go along. But I think once you get more confident in your own writing style and what your vision is, you can edit as you go along, because you've got more of that experience and knowledge of what you're looking for.
Yeah, I mean, that's the model that I've adopted. So when I started, the first 2 books I wrote were entirely the first way, and I hated the editing process on both of them, particularly the second draft. And what I've found now is, well, I've been writing the book, I'm nearly finished now, for on and off, not consistently, for about 5 or 6 years. And I decided when I came back to it, after a very long gap, to switch to a similar model. So what I actually did was edited all of the chapters up till that point,
Yeah.
and now I'm literally on a write edit model. I think so. You almost edit scenes as you go, don't you?
I do scenes, yeah, rather than chapters. I do, because I normally have 3 or 4 scenes in one chapter. I think whereas your chapters, I think very much like tend to be one scene, don't they? It makes more sense. So kind of the same sort of thing, but obviously your chapters tend to be like one scene, so that's why you do chapters rather than scenes. But it is sometimes just kind of feel like you're watching one scene from a TV program over and over and over again. But it's definitely worth it when you start to see the story emerge and the book emerge. It's definitely worth doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I've so literally, I think I wrote the first 31 chapters of Empress of the Trees the original way, and then I had to edit them all to get to the point. And then when I picked it up and continued, I've been doing exactly the same as you: write, edit, and I think it's probably the only reason I'm going to get this thing finished, because if I'd done it the other way, it's enormous. It's a lot bigger than anything I've written before, and I think if I'd tried to write it the way I had originally, I don't think it would have ever happened. And I'm really pleased that you suggested it, because I specifically remember we were sitting in Cafe W when you said, "Oh, well, have you thought about doing it this way?" And I'm sure I initially went, no, I have, but no, I'm not going to. And then I thought about it, and it is definitely working for me. As I say, I'm not going to lie, I am recording this in advance, so hopefully when this goes out, I will have finally finished that first draft of Empress. Fingers crossed indeed. But if I haven't,
just keep poking him until he does, don't worry.
Well, I will be very, very close. So, I mean, the audience will already know, because they'll have heard me either commiserate with myself for not meeting my target for the end of the month, or congratulate myself. But brilliant.
I still think even if you don't hit your target at the end of the month, I think the rate of what you're working at now is a lot quicker than previously, I think. So you should be very proud of actually having that motivation and actually that speed of working now, I think.
Yeah, and I'm actually enjoying it as well. Although I think one of the things you said, one of the reasons possibly I was procrastinating a little, was because I'm not looking forward to not being with these characters anymore, because I really it's like you with your characters, you adore your characters, you know them backwards, and you worry when you write that, is this consistent with their personality and stuff like that. I mean, I've got to the point where I sometimes have a plan for the chapter, and then the characters just don't play ball, and you're like, I've now got to work round that because my original plan didn't work. But then sometimes that's a nice thing, because in the bit I've hopefully just finished writing as we speak, I decided to give 2 characters one more little trial before something nice happened to them, and then I wrote it, and literally I was writing, it's like, oh no, the nice things happen now, what's going on? And I just thought, you know what, I've given these guys enough grief up until this point, perhaps it might be quite nice to do something quite nice for them. But so no, genuinely thank you for that suggestion, because it has made a big difference to the way that I am now working, and hopefully as a result I'm getting somewhere. So you've got quite a diverse and large list of characters in your books, and usually some are in the stories more than others. Who's the big character in this one, would you say, if there is one?
So that would probably definitely be Mr. Percival Locke, who is the illusionist and on the side master gentleman thief. Because for a while, I think since book 3, he's sort of been in the book 3, or very much not even in the books, because he is also a heroin addict. So he is actually coming out of that rehab, thankfully, due to his wife, Dr. Annette Locke, who's helped him basically overcome his demons and overcome his addiction. And he actually comes out of sort of that situation to then be assigned to the case, because he owns his own theatre called Paddington Palladium. So he's got a lot of knowledge of how the theatre works, how the mechanics of the society and the hierarchy in theatres. So he's assigned by Miss Trent to basically be almost like one of the investigators in that case. And very much, I think he's very much a welcome return for Mr. Locke, because there's definitely sort of a couple of strong personalities within the collective characters, and other than Mr. Locke, I would say Dr. Wicks is the other one. And Mr. Locke is one that people sort of warm to from the beginning, because he's a gentleman, he's a bit of a charmer, a bit of a womanizer, but ultimately he is human, and he has flaws and he has his own issues. And I think people appreciate that I've tried to do a realistic portrayal of heroin addiction back in that era, and how that would have been dealt with, and not just sort of papered over the cracks, basically. And so it is good to actually see him back in the fold, being his usual charming self, even though he's a bit tired and a bit, obviously still struggling because he's still recovering from his rehab. But it's good to actually see him getting back to something of his former self.
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely believe that was a very brave decision to make, because he is one of the more popular characters, I would say. And so to I suppose, take the time to do that plotline realistically meant it had to be out of some of the books.
For months.
Yeah, exactly.
in the universe of the books, he was out of the action for about a few months, yeah.
Yeah, and then, of course, you've also got other characters missing from these books, haven't you? Because certain people are off doing other things.
Yeah. So there's a couple of characters who are actually abroad at the moment. So one's in America, one's in Paris. And also there are two others that are also a company out person in Paris. So, but that's also been part of another subplot, sort of a romantic, sort of will they, won't they subplot. But I kind of feel like it got to the point where, particularly one of the characters, I think the readers kind of needed a bit of a welcome break from him. Because even though he's a bit of a comic relief, he's a bit of one of the characters you just want to pick up and shake and be like, grow a pair, basically.
I think you're hoping his time away is going to, because even if it isn't going to be directly in the main series, you kind of have an idea of what happens to them when they're away that will shape any changes to them when they return. Is that fair?
I think with him, he will, when he comes back, he'll be starting sort of on that road properly to actually reassessing his own life and take responsibility for himself as well. I think he won't be an overnight change, but he will be. If it would take a lot of time for reflection, he would have had to rely very much on his own senses, his own intellect, his own wits, basically, within America when he was over there. And I think when he comes back to London, he is going to try to carry that on and basically try to be a bit more of a less annoying individual, lack of a better term.
Excellent. So you tend to do quite a lot of research for these books. I know you do take pride in making them as historically accurate as you possibly can. So what do you do and how long does that take?
So what I tend to do is I do a plot plan, which is quite detailed. Then I'll then go off and have research points that I'll need to research. So with this one particularly, I wanted to make sure I included some slang phrases because the main actress happens in London, but they also go to Birmingham for a bit. So I want to make sure some of that is actually included. So sort of with slang, I use sort of J. Reddingware's Victorian Dictionary of Slang and Phrase. I also got a book, Lost Buildings of Birmingham. So again, all of the buildings, then it's how the place they go to in the book were actual public houses that obviously don't exist anymore. And obviously, especially with the police as well, very key to get that side of things accurate. So I contacted the West Midlands Police Museum and they gave me a lot of help with, because it was the City of Birmingham Police at the time I'm writing, so they hadn't quite merged at that point. And the detective department was still relatively new, like it was in most of the parts of the country. So again, making sure that part was realistic. And also just because the theatre itself is such, you still got to think of theatre as theatre, but there's so much research that goes into the mechanics of how the theatre works. And also I think with what can show you when you do your research is you can sometimes make assumptions about certain environments and certain settings. And what obviously nowadays with a theatre, and we all, you're used to it being like dead silent and the house lights go down when you have performance. Whereas back in 1897, when this is a set, house lights were automatically left on and people regularly chatted throughout a performance because it was seen more of a social setting. It was more of an opportunity to get gossip. And so again, unless you've done that research, you would automatically assume that it would be how it is done now. So it's that sort of thing that I like to pick up on, and it gives you a more sense of place, a more sense of of people, and even sort of down to who would actually be in the theatre itself. So you've got the usual stage manager, the business manager, the actual manager of the theatre, but also you've got somebody called a supermaster who would be someone in charge of the extras because they were called supers, and so it's all those sort of little things that not only sort of formed the setting but also formed the mystery. I do, it could be a bit of a rabbit hole because you can sort of start from one thing and, there's something else, and before you know it, 5 hours have gone past. You've done no writing, but you've got a lot of research. So,
Well, I think I remember when you were writing, and I think it was book 5, you were looking at how disciplinary boards worked.
Yes.
For Mr. Conway. And I think that slowed you down for quite a while because it was quite difficult. You knew how they worked for somebody above a certain rank, but not his. So you kind of had to...
what it was difficult because actually I could find out how it worked for somebody below his rank, like a constable, how that would work for them. maybe even a sergeant. But because Conway is an inspector, there wasn't many examples of an inspector being put through that. Does anything mean it didn't happen though? It's just where, not necessarily any records of it. And talking to the Metropolitan Police Heritage Centre curator, and also talking to former Metropolitan Police officers, it's good to get that sort of insight. But very much what I had to go based upon was just books written and published by former police officers that were published in like the 1930s. That was the closest I could get to that era. But that was very interesting. So because it's very much with sort of Metropolitan Police back in that era, was very much like you've got the official stance of what should happen, and you've got that little bit of an underbelly and actually what actually happens. And I felt like in most organisations, I think, and I just really I'm fascinated by that culture, fascinated by that psychology, and how that would be sort of dealt with back then.
It is. It's really interesting. As I remember you telling me all about that particular. I obviously got it the wrong way around because my memory was that it was the senior officers that they. But yeah, I thought that was really, really interesting. I remember at the time. So book 7. Wow, 70% of the way through the series as planned, if nothing changes. So what?
I think people are hoping that it does change. I think people are like, you will write on number 11, won't you? You will write number 11. Like at the moment. No, but there's plans to be the spin-offs, but yeah, there's at the moment it is. Unfortunately, it's going to come to an end on book 10, I'm afraid.
Oh, so what can you tell us about what goes on beyond books? I mean, obviously, you can't say too much because you don't want to even give spoilers for the book, but I believe you already have started working on book 8.
Yes, so book 8 plot plan basically is done now. I'm now in the stage of doing the research. As you know, though, the plot plan, the actual final book, it really looks like the plot plan, but at least the plot plan gives me a starting point. And so very much sort of like from book 1 to book 5, that like maximal plot line was building, so they come to like a crescendo in Maximal Murder. There's things that I've started in book 7, which people won't necessarily have noticed, which are going to now develop further in book 8, which will then all lead on to book 9. So the last half of the series very much is all interconnected. So it is very much, we're now getting more, into the detail of sort of the characters and sort of the main plot arc, the conspiracy that's developing at a pace. And so sort of things that, that have been going on for a bit of a while, they will start to pay off now in book 8. There's going to be a couple of resolved plot lines, dramatic revelations, and yeah, not necessarily everybody's going to come out at the end of the series, I'm afraid.
Oh, now you're going to have me speculating as to who the poor unfortunates might be, but I won't. I'll try not to think about that too hard. Yeah, I think it's amazing how consistent the series is. I have to say, you were talking about the conspiracy storyline, kind of the under.
Yeah.
I love that. As I've said to you on many occasions before, I'm not a massive fan of the murder mysteries. I do enjoy yours, but it was actually that understory that got me into the rest of it. So I think it's genius, I have to say. I think, you're maintaining the mystery and the interest very well. But as a reader, at some point there's going to be an SHIT hits the fan moment.
Yeah, just to explain, so that conspiracy plotline, people don't know. So at the very end of the very first book, Miss Trent has been meeting throughout the book a mysterious gentleman with a bowler hat and a pipe. And the very end, one of the last lines of the book is he's revealed to be Chief Inspector Richard Jones of Scotland Yard. And as the series goes on, you discover that even though Miss Trent is the clerk and the public face of the society, Chief Inspector Jones is actually the true founder of the society. And he, being a very young Chief Inspector, he's only in his early 30s. I think a lot of people forget that. He's only 33, which actually back then would have been quite an impressive feat to become a Chief Inspector of Scotland Yard Detective Branch at such a young age. Obviously, he was mentored by Conway when he first joined the police. Basically, for Jones to publicly be seen to be being disloyal and going against the police, because very much it was about like being loyal and staying together and that sort of culture. If he was to be exposed as that leader, it could ruin his career. It would be quite bad for the police themselves, because he's ultimately saying, well, we're not good enough as a police force. That's why we need this bunch of members of the public who are just basically meddlers, basically, to come in and sort our investigations out, because we're just not very competent. So that would be how it would be perceived. So he has to very much keep his role within the society secret. Conway again, as revealed for that series, that you find out that he was there from the beginning. So, which I think came quite a surprise to the readers. I think they thought that he came out for a bit later, but actually he's been there from the beginning, from some of the flashbacks. And so between two of them, they recruited Miss Trent. So Miss Trent knows that Jones is the founder, and she knows Conway's obviously knows as well. Conway is very much stuck in the middle between his loyalty to the police and also what he believes in society. So I think that's why he's quite a popular character as well. And there's the conspiracy theories that the three of them are trying to keep this secret in order to protect the society and be able to ensure that it can continue to give the justice to members of the public that is what it was set up for. But at the same time, you've got Inspector Wolf, Caleb Wolf of Bow Street, and Inspector Gideon Lee, originally from Kensington, he's now in Scotland Yard, investigating this mysterious founder of society, this mysterious employer, Miss Trent, and basically trying to expose that truth. And with the view to actually then closing down society, because Wolf believes that members of the public should be putting themselves in danger, should be getting involved, whereas Inspector Lee just likes his lifestyle and he just thinks that they're a threat to his lifestyle, basically.
And it's really having an impact on the characters, because I was trying to work out when Miss Trent and Chief Inspector Jones were last able to meet, because they're having to be so careful now.
Yeah, because they're constantly being watched, yeah.
Yeah, so I can't remember. I mean, it's certainly, I don't think, from memory, because I've been one of your beta readers, I've already read the book, I don't think they meet in this one. Did they meet in the last one as well?
I think the last time they were able to meet, I think it was Jones, Conway, Miss Trent at Poets' Corner, Westminster Abbey. I think that was in Pugilist Ploy. If not, it was definitely in the one before that. But no, yeah, exactly, in book 7, because people who read the Pugilist Ploy will know that at the end of Pugilist Ploy, Conway has been not deranked, but he's been reassigned to Bow Street. So he's been moved out of Scotland Yard, and was the head of the fictitious mob squad. He's now been removed from that, and Lee has been put in his place. So Lee's very much using his position to have detectives watch not only the Bow Society house and Miss Trent, but also all the other members. So there's covert surveillance of them happening. When I say covert, he's quite openly says to them, "I'm watching you all." So because of that, Miss Trent can't see Jones, but she's also finding it very difficult to meet Conway as well.
It's really, really interesting stuff, I have to say. For those of you who haven't read book 7 yet, you are absolutely in for a treat. So how do you, because you're self-published, aren't you? You don't, you're not. So how do you let people know that these books are there?
I think I'm quite lucky in the sense that because it's a bit of a niche, but it's a different way of doing crime fiction. People sort of stumble upon them anyway through like Amazon, for the algorithms and everything. But also I do have a newsletter, Gaslight Gazette, people subscribe to. I've got quite active on social media, so I have a trivia of the day fact, which I do every day. So any kind of fact to do with from the 1800s, so it could be a painting, a book, a person born, or a weird invention or a slang term, and that sort of gets people interested in that side of things, and then go from that to the books. But I also do in-person book signing events, and this year I'm doing the most book signing events in 1 year than I've ever done before. So on the 8th of March, I'm going to be at the Dark Side of Brighton Festival. So I'm on a panel for the historical crime fiction with some other authors at that event. Then on the 22nd of March, I'm at the Fiction Fans and Ball Gowns book sign event in Newark. And then the 26th of April, I'm at the Book Lovers in Birmingham book sign event at the Holiday Inn NEC Birmingham. And then in 25th of October, I'm one of the signing authors at the Orpheus Armouries, which is at the Royal Armouries in Leeds. So, and I've also got a couple of other events that I've also signed up from, hopefully going to do this as well. So I'm very much those in-person events are very popular. They do very well for me because I can actually stand in front of somebody and actually tell them what the book's about. Because when I say crime fiction, everybody's got this preconceived idea of what crime fiction is, and then when I explain actually mine's a bit different, they're like, that sounds really interesting actually. And then they buy the first book. Or I've actually had people buy like the Pugilist Ploy because they like boxing. So they've actually read Pugilist Ploy, loved the whole story, and they've gone back and read books 1 to 5. But again, doing interviews like this, sort of networking, getting out there, talk to other authors or book bloggers, streamers. So with the release of this book, I'm doing a couple of radio interviews. It's really got to try and just like basically put yourself out there, and you have the confidence to actually put your book out there, put yourself out there. it's not good for everybody, and you need to realise that there will be people who may have a negative opinion of your books. Nothing personal. People just, they don't necessarily like everything they read. That's absolutely fine. But you have to have that sort of, readiness to actually, have that sort of negative reviews or feedback. But at the same time, you have brilliant authors, brilliant readers, and authors who, love your work, who are very supportive, who are happy to sort of share each other's books, and also do interviews with each other and everything. And especially with a couple of readers that I said they came to UK Book Club Live event that I've done a couple of years ago, and then they came to Books on the Beach last year, and that was the first kind of indie book fair they'd done. They loved it, So it's building those connections, and that's just appreciating every single reader that you do get, and building that brand really.
I mean, I think you've done a great job. I say one of the things that puts me off of self-publishing is I'm not even interested in doing the amount of sheer work that you do to get yourself out there. I know it sounds really lazy, but I don't know. That's what worries me about going down the self-publishing route. So hats off to you, because it's obviously working for you, and you've got a following now. And every time I look at your social media, the numbers of followers and bits and pieces are growing. And obviously, I looked at I think. I can't remember what the fact was, but I did see when it was able to pre-order on Amazon, it seemed to be doing quite well, and stuff like that. So that's all wonderful to hear, and they're also really good books as well.
Oh, thank you. That's half the battle, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for spending the time to talk to me today. As I say, the book is out today in both ebook and paperback. It's a big one. Don't drop it on your foot. But so congratulations on it. I'm looking forward to book 8. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you.